mute them and open up their video so we can have a conversation. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. I'm going to take it off screen share, and let's just have a good time. Go ahead.
Okay, so Ariella Schuchman.
Yep. Hi. Thank
Hi,
you.
Ariella. How are you?
I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Hope you found it helpful.
It is. It's very helpful. My question is, with the postpone strategy that you talked about with the 3 steps and how we get to postpone, would that same idea also work or be needed for when the teenagers want to introduce social media? And what are your thoughts about Instagram, Snapchat, and social media that's not necessarily what we're looking for, but what the teens feel they need to connect with?
It's exactly the same process, the same thinking, and that's why there is no one rule, right? Because it depends on the child's temperament, and it depends on what their friends are doing. Again, just imagine what it's like to come into class and the majority of the children are talking, let's say, about what they saw on Instagram. Now, you may or may not like it, of course.
Right.
And your kid comes in and says, oh, you're saying news meters the Shabbos. That dog ain't gonna hunt, right? Okay, so I'm saying it's mirrors are beautiful, please. In other words, understand the reality. If this is where the children are, and a lot of times, truthfully, parents get like sticker shock. Like you move into a certain neighborhood because you like your friends and you like it. And let's say that neighborhood is a little more progressive. And now the kids are doing things that you're not comfortable with. And you say, hey, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. Whoa, I'm moving back to wherever, fill in the blank, right? That's not the way it works. You made a decision. This is where you put your children in school. And the grass is always greener on the other side. You may go to the other place and the parents are all clueless and say, oh, Baruch Hashem, my kids aren't using any of this stuff, and then maybe using it more without supervision. This is the process I believe I would encourage you to do every step of the way. And what we talked about, third category, was named Ariel, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the third category.
Prepare.
I noticed that grimace. No. I meant the third category. Yes, no, and I don't like it, but I'm going to let you.
Oh, okay, fine.
I was watching your face when you said the word Instagram.
Well, yeah, it's the
started
whole
like twitching, right?
Yeah.
That's the third category. I'm not comfortable. I really don't like this.
Okay.
But
I'm glad you asked.
But I'm glad you asked, and because you asked, we're going to talk about it. Okay. Now, you may make the case that it's too progressive. And by the way, just like I did not mention, and I probably should have, in all those variables, you as a parent are a variable, right? Some people this doesn't work for them. I propose that because of the nature of technology, I said, look, I believe that every generation has its challenges. With all the talk about kids abandoning religion, it's a tiny fraction of the kids who abandoned religion 100 years ago. Even in Yerushalayim, with those holy people who were the Talmidim of the Gra and the Bashem Tov, they had 50-70% of the kids, were abandoning religion. Every generation has its challenges. You can overcome this. And the best way to do it is to have real communication where you talk about things and you're opening, mostly listening. Let the kids talk to you. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Would Snapchat be any different? I'm just curious. Or it's the same?
It's all, yeah, Snapchat is more concerning because the stuff disappears, right?
That's what I was wondering.
Right. So that's why, what do you think they invented it for? Right? I'm saying this is all part of it.
Okay.
And by the way, I said about, do you get it? Parents, all of you, not just Ariella, all of you, please, don't forward to your children, I'm begging you, don't forward them the stuff that your mother-in-law sends you on the family WhatsApp group about these corny lines. I remember when online was when you were actually on a line. Remember that? You're hanging up a sign. I don't get it. Don't talk to me. I'm clueless. That's really what you're saying. I don't mean you. I'm telling all of you parents. And I love your mother-in-law. It's good. It's all good. But I'm saying I was kibitzing with that part. But don't say things. Nobody talks anymore. Texting, schmexting. What happened to? I promise you, when phones came out, I'm sure people said the same thing. And if you went to the caves in Egypt and read the hieroglyphics, it probably said, "Tell the kids to knock it off and lower the music." You know, this is every generation felt that the next generation is going to pass. I believe this is so since the beginning of time. I spoke at a Shalshudas and one of our married children. You should all be zeichet to get there. You know, they say grandchildren are God's reward for not strangling your teenagers. Okay, so I'm saying, like, I went to the shul there and I spoke to the Shalshudas, and they just opened the new shul, and I spoke to the kids. I was talking about the importance of a shul. But I told them, I said, my generation thinks your generation is, you know, like they're busy with the phone or whatever. And, you know, and my parents' generation thought that about us. And you see, Baruch Hashem, we have 5 married kids. They're great kids. And we're making mistakes like everybody makes. They're good kids. They have good values. They have great friends. You have to be confident that, you know, part of this, what I said about, you have to have self-confidence that you can help your kids do this. Go. Anybody else? Next.
Did you raise your hand?
Yes. You're unmuted by the host.
Hi.
Go ahead. Anybody?
Go ahead now.
Do you
Talk.
hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what if you have a 15, 16-year-old who you already gave a phone to and were naive and whatever, and didn't make these rules? And
I got 4 emails like that today. I got 4 emails from parents saying, could you please talk about what happens when we made, you know, we didn't do this rule thing, and now we have sticker shock that we didn't, you know, where we had buyer's remorse or whatever you want to call it. So,
and I feel like if I bring up anything, they're going to be like, well, you don't trust us. Why don't you trust us? Yeah. Any ideas?
I would say very, very gradually. Don't come home and say, Horowitz said, you know, like overnight, you know, you got to have rules, we need a contract. You'll freak them out. You know, true story, I had a teenager. I still see his face in front of me years and years ago. He said, my parents, like, they're so erratic. Every year they go to the Aguda convention and they come home and they say, we're throwing out all the TVs. You know, you can't make kids crazy. But what you could do, perhaps, I would suggest that card technique. I don't see why it shouldn't work now. In other words, you say, look, I'm not taking your phone away, of course not. But here are some cards that have my concerns. Let's talk about it. What do you think you could do? I don't want you to get cyberbullied, God forbid. You know, I don't want to. Whatever. I want you to have good friend, you know, social network and this and that. I want you to do hobbies. Here are my concerns. What do you think we could possibly, what could you do to make me more comfortable so that I shouldn't be thinking, you know, of what's going on? And have a conversation about it. Maybe you could work something out. You know, it's not like you're redoing. I think it could be a good way to start. Just because you didn't do it at the beginning doesn't mean that you can't have a conversation about it. As so long as you're not saying, okay, give me your phone and now we'll talk. That's not going to work for sure. But I to all of you that are thinking like that, I think it's healthy to have a conversation like that. Say, listen, I love you very much. It's not that I don't trust you, but and you know, but I just want to know about this. And I want to tell you, you know, that's why you got to let kids ask you questions. I had this in my own yeshiva. The point when I'm going to just do this quickly because I want to take other questions. But I called a parent meeting in our yeshiva before the summer. And at the time, a lot of the kids were getting their own email addresses. And when we crafted the rules of the yeshiva, email wasn't that, you know, you had to have an AOL account and pay for it. And it was a different arrangement. And all of a sudden, Gmail came out or other stuff came. The kids were getting, and I wasn't comfortable with it. And I called a parent meeting at the end of the yeshiva, the last day after, like right now, after the last day yeshiva. And I said, look, parents, the kids are not old enough to have their own email addresses. I suggest that we do family emails, like Horowitz family at Gmail. And people should write the child's subject name in the subject line, write the kid's name. This is for Yankee. And like this, there's some supervision. The children should, anyway. So a woman raised her hand and she said, "Oh, Horowitz," and I told the parents, I said, "I'm telling you now, because if you don't like this rule, there's other yeshivas in town. I'm not sending you away, but this, you have to be able to do this." Anyway, the parent raised a hand and said, "Horowitz, could you please sell this to the kids?" I said, "No. Could you please sell this? You'll do a good job. You know, I'm afraid to go home and talk to them." So I said, "Who wants to sponsor donuts and whatever it was?" So somebody raised their hand right away. "Oh, great! As long as you're doing this." So we opened up Rabbi Radinsky Shul, and I had like the middle school kids, I think 5th to 8th grade, and I told them about this rule and I said, "You can ask me anything. I promise you, it's not going to be disrespectful. I know I'm your manal, I know Adin, whatever. I know you respect me. It's okay. Ask me anything." And one of the kids said, "Hey, Rebbe, what? You don't trust us? You think we're thieves? You think that's how you think we're going to have? What's the matter?" You know, he said it very politely, but and I told him maybe it wasn't. You know, I thought it was a good answer. I told him, "Look," I said, "Look, you know, I said the Torah has rules of yichud, that you're not supposed to isolate yourself with other women." I said, "If I have a meeting with your mother, my house, 9 o'clock at night, is not where we do it, or in the school building that's empty." So I said, "You don't trust me? The Torah doesn't trust. The Torah thinks that I'm doing a terrible thing." I said, "Me, Yankee Horowitz, I'm the Manal Shlita. I have rules also. So it doesn't mean we don't trust you. It means that because we trust you, you need some boundaries." So I'm saying, like, you don't need to feel that you ran out of runway. Just go and have a conversation that's more organic, that Rav Olba would be proud of. You can do that really at any time. Go ahead, folks, carry away.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Don't feel shy. If you have a life, feel free to go. I'm glad to stay and answer questions. Folks?
Okay, Lisa, you're unmuted.
What do you recommend for coming to an agreement on the amount of screen time that children have? You know, whatever we might say, obviously, 15-year-old child might not agree with. How do you don't? And if they find ways to get around it, what do you recommend for how to
work something out? That's the big idea here. The big idea is that if your child says that, 4 hours a day is fine for me, and you say, "Whoa, there's a whole world out there," then you work something out. You just negotiate it out. It's just that simple, and a 15-year-old is at the outer limit of that time where they get this stuff behind your back. I would say, I'm not kidding you. If I was a kid today, I would have my own phone at 7 or 8 already. Okay, so I'm saying, like, a 15-year-old that's not interested, that your rules are not working, I would say the majority of them will just go and do whatever they do on their own by then. So talk about it. And you know something? If
you do, I just find it's often, no matter what our idea is, it's not, of course, there shouldn't be a restriction on the amount of time.
So make it more interactive. Make it more interactive and say, like, what's your idea for this? What do you think is fair? Talk it over and negotiate. Look, let me ask you, let's look at it a different way. How long is the shelf life on this? How long is it till you have no say whatsoever?
Right, not that long.
Not that long, right?
Right.
So even if you're making a whole fuss about this, it's a big fuss that's going to strain your relationship about something that in a year or two is moot. So what are you making? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think just even now, when there's no school, no camp, it's just the tougher.
By the way,
the whole day of
right, whatever rules, it's not going to be that easy doing a reset after COVID. You're sitting around all day, and we're all going to have to deal with this in one way or another in our own personal lives. And I put on a pair of shoes for the first time 2 days ago. So I had a meeting on my back. I'm not kidding. I'm not going barefoot. I'm saying I'm wearing these ratty sneakers or whatever it is. Now, the first time I put on a pair of shoes was 2 days ago, since before Purim. So it's like, all of these things are going to change. It's a very big, and remember if you watched that first session, I had that slide of the people waiting online to, at the
Mhm.
We're all like that now. Your kids are like this now. Not a great time for you to make, to be pulling, to yanking in control with your 15-year-old right now. So just make it interactive and realize again, what's the shelf life on this? Rav Albu would say probably that, it's less of a shelf life. Make sure your relationship is strong. That's gonna be much more of a predictor. Go ahead, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, Leah Wilroth. Leah, you unmuted?
Yeah, I think I am. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so I am one of those very fortunate single mothers. I have Kanai 4 kids, but they are very spread out in ages, most of them. My oldest is Kanai. She just turned 19. And obviously, technologically, she's very advanced and has very few rules.
Right.
And then I have, I'm sorry?
I said you have some rules?
Yeah, definitely. As one of the other people was discussing, I do not, even at this age, allow her to have Snapchat. Yeah, and she's very respectful about listening to that. Probably because
rule follower?
I'm sorry?
Rule follower or rule breaker?
No, she's definitely a rule breaker, but I choose wisely what.
Then kol hakavod, I always tell parents that when you have the authoritative rather than the authoritarian, the great thing about that is that you have a couple of these cards in your pocket that you can yank out every once in a while and say, this is a no. And it usually sticks. I always say that you have a couple of cards in your pocket and you hang on to them because something's going to come along that's going to really be important to you. And if you're looking, I didn't mention it in the presentation, but I always tell parents that that's a plus, is that you have these couple of cards in your pocket. If the Snapchat is one for you, then you yanked it out and you said, look, sweetheart, I let you do all kinds of stuff. Snapchat's not happening. And then usually they listen because you've built up a reservoir of trust and understanding. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, we definitely have that going.
What was the question about the
So my question is, I have a 14-year-old and a almost 12-year-old, and they complain that their 19-year-old sister has more lenient rules than they do. They're kind of ignoring the fact that they're so much younger than she is.
Right, sure.
Right.
That's what you tell them. I promise you, you'll have the same rules.
Okay.
That car analogy is a good one. You say, look, this is the way it goes. So I think you're good. I mean, I think that's a fair way to go.
Okay, I muted her because there's a lot of background noise. You want to hear from Esther Diskind?
Sure. I just want, sure, but I just, did I finish the mom who just with the 19-year-old?
Okay, let me see.
Are we done? Did I answer your question?
She disappeared.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and
Okay.
I told you.
Yeah, I apologize. My 4-year-old is awake and not being quiet. So
my mother was a single mom for 2 years, so I stand up for you. Kol hakavod.
thank you so much.
Nachas and mazel. Go ahead. Next.
Okay, Esther Dickstein, sorry.
Hi. So I have a 14-year-old who thankfully has...
Oh, you're in the UK now?
No, I'm in Australia.
Oh, is that yesterday or tomorrow? I never get that
It's
one.
tomorrow. It's tomorrow. It's Wednesday
Tomorrow,
lunchtime.
okay. Yeah, because look, whatever. I was saying, if you're in the UK, that's I should stand up for you. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
No. Anyway, so I have a 14-year-old daughter who I'm on the one hand very blessed that she understands that Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok, she thinks in her very teenage mind, are absolutely stupid and time wasters. So I'm grateful for that. The one point of contention that we've had in the last couple of years is WhatsApp. And I might be behind many other parents in this department, but it's been something that has been a concern for me, because I know, I mean, even when you look at, you know, WhatsApp changing the rules of what can be forwarded to how many people, particularly in the last, you know, under the COVID situation of, you know, that your, you know, that the power of, you know, that the spreading of information and going viral is, you know, beyond our comprehension even. And my concern is that I'm trying to negotiate with her literally in the last few days. She's desperate for it. She feels left out. All her classmates, I put that in quotation marks, have it. But at the same time, I feel I'm not so much worried about what she's going to post, but more about what she's going to be receiving. And when you're being bombarded by friends sending you every bit of drivel that they've, you know, forwarding on at the click of a button, you know, there's the time wasting aspect of it. There's, you know, just, you know, being a passive receiver of all of this rubbish. And, you know, like, I'm sure she's sharing it with her friends, you know, regardless, but it's like in a lower scale. And I just feel like once I let her onto that WhatsApp arena, I'm opening her up to this entire world of viral sharing. And
So
I guess I'm trying to negotiate. Sorry.
No. So here's one thing. You know, you mentioned about time wasting and about usually, you know, when a parent calls me and says, "Should I let my child go to the pizza shop Matzah Shabbos, you know, whatever, 12 o'clock at night?" So I say, "You didn't finish the question. What happens if you say no?" Right? You didn't give me the whole story right now. You just asked, should they go there? That's not the question in isolation. Is your relationship strong enough to absorb a couple of blows, like saying no to something they want to do? And what are they going to do if you say no? Like, okay, so when you said about time wasting, right? If your child is doing well in school and they're functioning properly and the life is okay, you know, with how they're doing, then time wasting, what would you rather she do? Go out and, you know, with a bunch of friends and wherever they're going? I'm saying,
to be honest, like, Baruch Hashem, she has good friends, and I would personally rather she spend time with her friends in a healthy, wholesome way. I just feel like, to be honest, like, in terms of schooling, for example, like, we're in the middle of the school year now, and we've just gone back after COVID, and COVID was a really difficult time for her. She struggled. She's, Baruch Hashem, she's academically very bright, but she struggled with maintaining motivation and all of those things. And I guess my fear is that, you know, she wants to be part of the chevra, but at the same time, I just fear that the things, you know, business before pleasure, like, she's not, you know, I have an inbox full of incompleted assignments. And
look, I don't know the culture down under. By the way, just for the record, you know, I don't like speaking on platforms where there's guys from the UK or South Africa or Australia, because they open their mouth, they sound like 15 points more of an IQ than me. You know, as soon as they start, well, actually, I was the rubbish. You know, like that. Like, and I'm saying, you know, so just,
no. Please don't feel bad. You're a wealth of wisdom. I'm really grateful to hear from you.
Thank you. So look, I overall, I don't think it's a winning strategy to deny her something that all her friends are doing. I don't see how this ends well. If you, as we say in the yeshiva world, either you trust her or you don't. If you trust her, then you have to trust that she'll be able to weed out things that aren't appropriate and know when she doesn't belong. You know, which chats or which things she should remove herself from. If all her friends are, if even half of her friends or 60% of her friends are on a WhatsApp group, WhatsApp is the tamest of the bunch. I know you can send garbage, rubbish, you know, anyway. It's just, I don't see a winning strategy holding back something from that everybody's doing. You know, this is going to really cost you. You know, you're putting.
Yep.
I said you're pulling out a card. You know, when you have one, this is going to cost. This is costing you 10 cards right now.
Okay.
There's only 14 right now. You don't know what's coming down here. We would say the turnpike. What do you say in Australia?
Highway.
The highway. So I'm saying, so like, you don't know what's coming down the road. You need all the cards you got. So I don't see. I don't think it's a winning strategy.
Okay, I'm
Couple more
glad
folks.
to hear from somebody with a better understanding than I do. She's my oldest, so it's my first rodeo.
Well, you should have. I wish you mazel and bracha. By the time the third teenager comes along, you can write your own book about it. It's mostly-
Thank you for your advice.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Go ahead, please. Anybody else? We'll take a couple more, folks. Anybody else?
Gabrielle Marizda. You have to unmute yourself, Gabrielle.
Yep. Got it. Perfect. Hello.
Hi, Rabbi Shalom. Thank you so much for this. It's been very, very helpful. The question is alongside what Esther just asked. We have a very responsible, very mature 9-year-old.
I'm sorry. I wasn't following the bouncing ball with the names. Esther was South.
That's
That's right. That's
down
right.
under.
Austria down under. Right.
Yes.
Our child is much younger. She's very responsible. She's an amazing girl, but she's about 9 years old. And since COVID, I feel like all her friends are a little bit getting more distance because obviously they're not spending a lot of quality time together. So it's been about a few months that they're all on this Facebook chat that I hear is like you can have parental control. There are like features that you can make sure nothing fishy happens. But at the same time, she knows about it, but she hasn't asked to be on it. It's our feeling that maybe all her friends now are getting together and talking about things. And
She's
come
losing
September,
out. And she's losing
they're
out.
gonna have
When she comes back, she's going to regret that.
exactly.
So have a conversation with her about it. If you want to be bold enough to talk to her about it and say, ask her how she feels about it. And certainly if you're bringing it up, then you can certainly put rules in for her. I think that would get you a lot of cards back, it gives you a look, how do you know she's not on it now? What filters do you have? Do you have a keystroke filter? Do you
She
She's
doesn't
not
have a phone.
into it. She
She's not
doesn't
into
have
it.
a
Baruch
phone.
Hashem.
She
Baruch
uses
Hashem.
our
Oh,
laptop.
that's what he's saying. She doesn't even have a phone.
No.
How many kids out of what percentage of her class does?
Almost all her close friends. There's a group of 8, 7 of them.
So only one doesn't.
Only one doesn't, and my daughter, so 2 of them.
I think you should talk to her. I think if you're bold enough to do it, sit down and talk to her and ask her how she feels about it. And maybe maybe there's a workaround, The truth is that there's enough good, you really can have a good handle on what your child is doing online. If you educate yourself, that you could have a pretty good handle of what they're doing. And I think what you always want to do is tell your children that if you feel uncomfortable, if somebody makes you uncomfortable online, or if you feel, you can always tell us no matter what. There was last session 3, the previous one we talked about, would your kids tell you, how to set up a relationship where they talk to you. I didn't say it during the talk, but that's what I was thinking about. I had a picture of a truck running down the hill and, going down the mountain and being able to, when you set up things like this, that kids can talk to you about anything, it gives you such, it's such a protection for them and for a comfort for you as a parent. That's probably more important than any of these other things. So if you reached out to her and you said, look, sweetheart, how do you feel about this? Is it bothering you? Tell us, let's talk about it. We're open to listening. I mean, my goodness, if I was a kid, I would, if you were my mother, I would bow down to you.
Thank you so much.
I think it's a good conversation because it probably will come up pretty soon. What?
It will come out at some point, if not now next year, the year after.
Initiate it, yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there's no more questions. Anyone else has a question?
I see a hand up. Mrs. Solomon, is that a hand? I see one hand. Then we'll call it a night or morning tomorrow. What's 2? Shia, what's 2? 2 questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Leila, I wanted to thank you very much for your service. We really appreciate it. Did anybody, you don't have a question? Yeah, Ellen Solomon. You see him?
She has to unmute herself.
Okay, there we go.
Go ahead,
Hey,
Chris.
hello from Israel.
That's Mesiris Nefesh.
Actually, I had the good fortune to wake up earlier than I wanted to, and I said, "Oh, look, I can go live this time." So, hi.
Sure.
Wondering how much to explain the danger. Our son's 14. How much to explain the dangers of pornography, or even just over associating with girls and pictures, supposedly innocent pictures. I think that's, I don't know if you're planning to cover that in another class, but there's always that debate of how much information to give.
Well, I didn't specifically plan on bringing that up, but so your question is having the talk, like, is that what you're talking about overall? About
I don't know, there are a lot of talks in that subject.
have you had, you know, a conversation with him about puberty and his body, and are you married, your husband?
General, yeah.
You did? Okay, good. No, I'm
Yes.
saying it's important to I think it's important that it's really awkward. One of the things I'd love to do before I hang up my sneakers, shoes, whatever, you know, I really wanted to write a book helping parents. They have good ones for girls, for mothers to speak to their girls about puberty and body change and all of this. But I really wanted to write one for fathers or mothers to speak to the boys about the changing bodies and puberty and all of this. It's such a big deal, and most of, you know, we get all clumsy, and for girls it's just physiologically it's usually an easier conversation, and you're forced to do it because they, you know, they get the period. You have to do, you know, boys you can theoretically not talk about it. So I think it's a broader conversation, not just about technology and about the access to inappropriate content. It's really a broader conversation about their bodies and how they're changing and what it means. And, you know, like I said, many parents are not, you know, I started teaching, oh my goodness, 40 years ago, 39 years ago. And, you know, this stuff, I was teaching 8th grade. So, you know, a lot of times Rashi or the Chumash or Gemara talks about things related to sexuality in some form. So I asked a few Rabbeim, like, how do you deal with this, right? To the old school that skipped it, you know? And I always felt that it's better just to have a mild conversation. And so I asked a couple of Rabbeim what they do with the stuff. So one of them said, I'm a 6th grade Rebbe, and I started, there was something there, and I started to like mumble or something. So one of the kids said, 40 years ago, before the internet, he said, hey, listen, Rebbe, if there's something you don't know, we'll be glad to explain it to you. It's a true story, you know? So, you know, very often the kids, usually the information that they have is mishmash. That, in other words, a lot of the stuff that the kids talk about in terms of their bodies and sexuality and all of this, they have like a mishmash of incorrect or partially correct information. And giving them the ability to talk about it with you is important. So if you want to talk about harmful content, you know, inappropriate content, it's a good conversation to have. I think it's helpful. It's more helpful if you have the courage or comfort level to have a broader conversation. Most importantly, telling him that he can talk to you about anything. There's nothing wrong with it. Come to me. I'm always available. Whichever parent, sometimes mothers are more comfortable talking to their sons about it. Sometimes fathers are, however that works. So I think it's a fair conversation, but make sure think about what your message really is going to be. That's really the question. What message do you want to impart? Okay, folks. I hope you found this helpful, everyone.
Oh, Rabbi Horowitz, wait, you promised us a couple stories or Divrei Torah.
Why do I feel that
promised.
45 to 2 now? I'm kibitzing. There's a beautiful vart from, I think it was Rav Schwab, I think, right? About, yes, I am supposed to tell you about the letter with the kids, so feel free. So Rav Schwab said a beautiful, I'm talking about congruence. You see, it's very difficult for parents to tell children that they can't do something that you're doing. Okay, I'm saying that was the overall point. Now, it's okay to say that, you know, I need it for business, or I'm an adult, and you know, but it's kind of tricky to tell kids, you know, I was never comfortable when I had conversations with our children about technology. I had a website at the time, you know, so it's really important to be congruent. I'm saying to live. I have a brother. He's a tzaddik. He's just a wonderful person. You know, he has an old flip phone. He's a genuinely Hasidic person. He raised his children. Everything is congruent. The schools that he sends them to, and the shul that he davens in his life at home. He treats a phone, and he has email for work. He's a mashgiach in the Sifta Teres Yakov in the 5 towns. He treats it like his wallet fell into a mud pile. You know, if you take it out and you wash it off and you just put it back in your pocket, that's how he treats the whole technology thing. Like, he'd much rather not have to deal with it. I have to deal with it. I got to go, and that's it. And he raised great kids with great values because it's congruent. It's all the same. So I always say, you can raise Yankee's kids. Yankee can raise Yankee's kids. And Rabbi Yehuda can raise his children. That's congruent with his lifestyle. It's very hard to try to raise Rabbi Yehuda's kids in Yankee's home, because if you have access to technology, it's very difficult with children. I'll tell you the verse from Rav Schwab. So Rav Schwab says, it's a really beautiful verse. It's in Mayan Beis HaSha'eva, his Sefer on Chumash. And the thought goes like this. It says that we read the Haftarah about Shimshon's parents, Manoach. So he goes out, Manoach, his wife had a dream that the Malach came and said, you're going to have a son, and he's going to be a Nazir, and he's going to, you know, you're not going to feed him wine and everything. And then the Malach disappears. And Manoach comes back and he says, Hashem, teach me how to raise this child. What should I do? Send me someone to tell me. So Rav Schwab says, first of all, if you want to know how to raise a Nazir, there's a parsha in the Torah that says what to do. Right? And the Malach comes back and says, do everything. Mikol asher mati Elisha tishamer. Do everything I said, told your wife. So first of all, most people know they have to do what the wife says anyway. No, but Rav Schwab said that. Rav Schwab didn't say that. No, but so he says, what do you mean, like a Nazir? We know what to do with a Nazir. And what was the big question? He says, such a beautiful thought. He said, Hashem, you told me to do something that I should drink wine, and I should tell my kid that he can't. How could you do that? That was his question. That when he asked, he said, the Malach told my wife that we're going to raise a Nazir. I mean, Nazir is someone that that voluntarily forbids, refrains from drinking wine. So he said, he wasn't asking a general question, what is a Nazir? Schwab says he was asking him, how can I raise a kid in a way that's not congruent? I'm going, don't touch wine, don't touch wine, don't touch wine, and while I'm knocking one back. So Schwab says it's not the Pashut Pshat, it's not the literal translation. He says that if you look at the words there, he told him, you should not drink wine either. That's what he was telling him. You want to raise a kid as a Nazir, you got to walk the walk with them. That was the thought that related to that congruence. All right, guys, have a wonderful one. I really hope you found it helpful and thought-provoking. Be well, everyone. I'll see you in a week. Take care.